20 years ago, I spent 2 years traveling the world and ended up in Senegal. There I met a guy named Musa on a bus. Since it was late in the afternoon, he wondered if I had a place to stay. I did not, and accepted his invitation to join his family. Little did I know, his family was a drumming family for the village, and I was a drummer. For 2 months, I stayed with Musa's family and learned to play the djembe and saba. For the past 8 years, we kept in contact through social media, and I just recently went back to Senegal for a month with my camera, drone, and audio recorder. I just didn't do the tourist thing. I was welcomed back into the family that took me into their village 20 years before. This is just a little video of my trip with some observations I made while living with Musa's family and traveling around Senegal on my road trip. Since drumming was a big part of my trip 20 years ago, let's start here. I only played a bit of drums this trip because I was too busy videoing. One day the saba drums were getting reskinned, and I got to video the whole process. Here it is. I had my birthday in Senegal. A few local drummers, along with some drummers from the family I was staying with, came down to the beach house where I was staying. We had some great drumming, dancing, dinner. Here's a little drumming from that night. And this is how the kids start learning the drum rhythms. It is really neat coming back to a village after 20 years. You see the kids are all grown up, having babies of their own now. The girl in the blue chair is the little girl in the purple dress from 20 years ago. I got to observe the family during mini lunches and afternoons, just hanging out. I noticed the men were men, the women were women, and the kids had respect for their elders. More so, all the people had respect for the elders. The guys would use the word boy. As anyone younger than you would hear, boy, do this, do that, and it was done. This goes outside the family unit to random people in the streets. The men would be sitting around, talking. The young kids would come home from school and shake their hands and give a few seconds of eye contact. Move on to the next person, till all persons were greeted. They would not interrupt the conversation or make it all about them. Some of the girls would curtsy and shake your hands when greeting. I also noticed women hitchhiking at night, and there seemed to be no issues of safety. I'm sure there are safety issues in bigger cities, but where I was, it was fine. The women liked to dance around. There was definitely a rhythm of life in the daily activities. Lunch, hanging out afterwards, and tea. Lunch was around 2 in the afternoon. The men ate out of one big bowl, and the women and children ate out of another bowl. I really enjoyed this way of eating. You could eat with your hands or use a spoon, whatever you preferred. And tea was an important part of the social structure of the family. It was a process to make the tea, so it would take about a half hour to have tea. Also, the one-on-one greetings would take 30 seconds to a minute. How are you? How's your health? How's your parents? And you would reply the same back. Moose and I talked about it, and he said, if you are not well, Senegal is not well. Back in the West, we really don't want to hear if you are not well. People are more self-centered and too busy to stop and really listen. 20 years ago, we went to a football game, or a soccer game as we would call it, and one of the brothers stood up at the end of the game and yelled, "Jajafwai." I did not know what it meant, but it sounded neat. A few hours later, at home, I repeated that word when a bunch of us were just hanging out. I told them where I heard it from, and we all laughed. The word means the highest level of thank you. On this trip, I reminded them of that moment 20 years ago. And Judgify took on a life of its own. Judgify! We all started using it all the time. It became sort of a theme of the trip. I thank them for letting me into their family with my video camera so I could make this video, and they thanked me for the money that was flowing, and they understood my video concept to highlight Senegal. Moose and I went on a 10-day road trip. We ran around Senegal in his car. I did not do this 20 years ago, so this was a great eye-opener to see more of the landscapes of Senegal. We saw the tourist areas, traditional villages, big and small. Once in a while, we had some car problems, so we had to get the car fixed. This is where you really got to see the sights, the sounds, and the smells of Senegal. I just love being out here. Every day was an adventure. You never knew what you would see. The randomness of daily life. This is an outstanding outstanding traditional village in the east of Senegal. We went to a national park and stayed at a hotel where they had local drummers and dancers putting on a show for us tourists. We went on a safari, rented a truck and guide, and drove around for about 2.5 hours. This park is privately owned and has been operating for about 20 years. All the animals roam around wild. The owners and staff do a great job. In the wild, there's a rhythm of life. Little bit of paradise down here. Cows on the beach. This is down in South Senegal. Casamis area. Elastic family. Everywhere we go, Musa seems to have family and friends. Went in this family compound, and they allowed me to video freely. Little house that one of the fellows lives in. Here's a water well. Again, there was a natural rhythm of life here. I just met these people and they offered me lunch.
Coconut. Coconut from Africa.
Lounging around. There's a fella cutting the coconut. We walked to the beach while the sun was setting. Yeah, look at that. Paradise. Making tea on the beach. While in the Casamas area, Musa hired a local guide to take us into this little village. Dinner tonight.
That's good dinner.
Pigs must be reading my mind. There was no problem videoing. People were so nice and open. We just wandered around this village talking to people. This village is surreal. We got lost a few times. The locals had to point us in the right direction. Ladies carrying stuff on their heads. Lost again. Goats, chickens, and dogs, all running wild here. There's a rhythm of life, even with the animals. This is another idealistic village on the Delta. We rented a boat and driver to take us here. You never know what you'll see here. Here's kids by the river on donkeys. On the water with the birds, and of course the baobab tree. Being on the west coast of Africa, fishing is an important aspect of Senegal. Rice and fish is the main meal. There seems to be a natural rhythm of life, on and off the sea. The fishermen going out in their boats, casting their nets off the beach, or fishing with a rod off the beach. Also, there's a rhythm of buying and selling of the fish on the shores. Many people are gathered to buy and sell not just the fish, but anything fishing related. with my insight into a typical family in a typical village in Senegal, which I pointed out in this video, and my insight into the Western culture, because I live there, I have noticed that Senegal still seems to have an age of innocence that is lost in the West. The moral decay is less here in Senegal than the West. Our morality can be linked with our decadent society. And look at history, we can see what happens to a country when there's a slide downward on morality. Our song of decadence will soon come to an end. As individuals and as a country, we are on a road. We can continue to take the road of moral decay, or we can take a new road and change our ways. Our government and spiritual leaders need to make choices that will not benefit their self-interest, but will benefit the best interest of our country and its citizens. I mentioned the rhythm of life throughout the video. There's still a natural rhythm of life here in Senegal, but in the West, a lot of the music rhythms are quantized to a computer grid. If you are a modern music producer, you would understand this. The beat, 1, 2, 3, 4, is perfectly lined up to a computer grid, as well with the spaces between the 1, 2, 3, 4. What we get is an unnatural feel. Of course, I'm generalizing here. Modern music producers are still using live musicians, as well as music loops that come from live musicians. The point I'm making here is over the years, our life can be so used to this quantized rhythms, we forget what natural rhythms sound like. We plug ourselves into the internet with our smartphones and computers. Our lives have an unnatural rhythm, or a quantized, locked to a computer grid feel to it. All the background music in this video is recorded live in Senegal. I would meet musicians and pay them to record 10 or 20 minutes of music. So you are hearing professional musicians on ethnic instruments. It is not overly produced. The timing may drift, the tempo may change, and in one case, there's wind in the background noises. My choice of background music may not be the choice of other people in the TV business, but I am making a statement here. We may need to train our ears to hear natural rhythms. That way, we can get back into the natural rhythms of life.